Good morning, everybody. So that was an impressive start, starting with Audi, then with, that was a good joke at the beginning. That's exactly the right joke to start a panel with. Exciting to be here. It's the first Wired Gründerszene Mobility Conference in Berlin, and I mean, not all of you probably have been already in the first floor, but if I see that attention here, and I saw the attention yesterday at the speakers dinner, and if you then go up and see the impressive amount of startups showing up here and new companies, new ideas, it's from my perspective, being in this for over 12 years, extremely exciting, and I'm very sure that this is only the first conference, and the next years we will see even bigger success on that. So we want to discuss a little bit about data, and I place myself here in between you. Data-driven mobility, which is a kind of I mean, there are all buzzwords in that you have to have today, right? Data and mobility and so on. But it's a little bit unconcrete. It's not really very well defined. I mean, Maxim gave a very good impression here what Ellie is doing. But let's discuss a little bit more in detail. And to start with, I would like to introduce, or I would like my co-panelists to introduce themselves, to tell a little bit the audience who you are. Sohaila, would you start?
Let's make a first correction. It's Sohaila.
Sohaila, sorry.
Hi, I'm Sohaila. I'm working for BMW I Ventures. It's the venture arm of BMW, and we invest in urban mobility startups. So everything that brings you from A to B, also your competition, and that's what we're doing.
Hello, everybody. My name is Landvogt. I work as a business development manager at Nokia HERE. In the automotive branch of HERE, to be more precise. I have a background in industrial engineering. I was busy as an entrepreneur, funded my own companies, 3 of them, run them for more than 50 years, and now I'm playing with the big guys.
Excellent. You want to say some more words about you?
Oh, well, I gave a pretty, I think, extensive presentation. Maxim Nohroudi, I'm co-founder of Ellie. And yeah, we're 40 people based here in Berlin and Porto Alegre. In Porto Alegre we have a subsidiary because Brazil is an important market for us. And yeah, I'm very excited to be on a panel with you, Holger. I think it's the first time.
Same counts for me.
Thank you so much.
Good, so let's try to put a bit of beef at the bone, right? I mean, data-driven mobility, what does it mean? Data actually means everything. So if we talk about this in this context, and we saw here a little bit from the Ellie perspective, the type of public transport data, but what data are we talking about here when we talk about that is the data that will drive business cases, companies, etc.? Jens, maybe you start with, coming from here, data is an important topic for you.
Definitely. I mean, if we are thinking about what kind of data is valuable for us, we are thinking mainly about car sensor data. And it is interesting to understand that a typical Volkswagen Golf, for example, of the current generation has more than 4,500 sensors included, already built into the car, 4,500. Before I knew that, I thought it'll be more like 45 or so. And these sensors generate gigabytes of data with every hour that the car is driving. Of course, most of these data is not relevant for any business cases because they are mainly used for optimizing the function of the engine, for example. But there's all kinds of data that could make sense. And from a HERE perspective, as we are map makers, the interesting part is combining car sensor data with location information. So once you have a context information attached to the data, you create information, and information is what's needed to come up with nice new business models, and that's what we are in.
Is this something, just to ask directly, is this something that is actually linked to a car, or is it in general? Because, I mean, this is linking data information with the location my smartphone is doing probably every second.
So is this a
OEM exclusive data set that you're talking about, or is it a general?
No, in fact, we are more interested in generalizing a data set. There's projects we are currently working on with a couple of OEMs which aim to create a marketplace for car sensor data. And of course, we need to have a common ground so that all services that are out there can rely on getting data of the same quality, of the same type, so that they can build their services on that basis. So that is currently going on with the OEMs, which is kind of a surprise for many people, because they expect that OEMs consider sensor data to be their own property, which is not the case, of course, as we all learned in the meantime. So this is quite exciting times when it comes to thinking about what we can do out of data.
So Sohaila, BMW is with connected drive around, I think, over 10 years, right? And there is a very impressive case, or business case, the predictive maintenance that many BMW people like to talk about, I understand, because it's a very successful example. Could you explain what this is and how this is related to the data you're collecting?
Yeah, basically, based on the sensor data that you have in the car and based on the telematics data that you can generate in future, what has been in the past always a pain. You know, you are on the car, you're on the road, your car breaks down, you don't know what's happening, and you have to take it to the service. That's going to change because the data will help us to predict in advance before something happens that the car has an issue. If you play it smart, if it's a good business model, then there will be also a service integrated to schedule already an appointment, all of those things. So this is basically killing one of the major pain points that we have nowadays. And with this data, we can also change a complete supply chain because we know what's going to happen to certain models. So that's a big game changer for us, and it's going to change how you're going to drive around and how you're going to live with your car.
Having this pattern in mind, that predictive patterns or driving behavior, etc., is this also something when you're looking for startups to invest into startups to find there, or what type of urban mobility startups, as you call them, you're interested in?
Well, in a sense, of course, predictive maintenance is also an interesting topic. We are looking into that as well. The way we invest so far, I'd say in the core of our investment is on-demand mobility. So everything that really happens in a city that brings people from A to B, that describes it pretty well. But we're also looking into intelligent parking services that help to bring parking into a digital experience, because we all know driving around is fun, but looking for parking spaces is a waste of time. It's not fun. We also have investments in charging, so we are related to the i brand and to the i-cars, the i3 and the i8. So we invested also in charging providers. So this is sort of the set that we are coming from.
So money for the i-car.
Yes, kind of.
Maxim, you just said you came back from Africa. I saw some of your selfies, quite impressive. You talked a lot about, I would say, emerging markets, right? And this is also where you are collecting a lot of data and where you see a big value proposition from your side. You showed this example here for Berlin, but in general, would you see more for that type of business you're doing, emerging markets, your target markets, or it's something where you say, no, it's exactly in the same way also in the Western markets where we have to solve the big issue of the 21st century, i.e. traffic?
So I think the very innovative public transport systems in terms of on-demand, responsive public transport, we will see firstly in cities like Jakarta, Manila, and so on. Why? Number one, they're not heavily invested in current public transport systems. There is no subway, there is no tramway, number one. Number two, they're much more in crisis than Munich, Berlin, and London. These cities are drowning right now. So their willingness to change and to try out new things is significantly higher than here. You know, all the issues we have here on data security and all that sort of stuff, and will I show my location, yes or no? This is not an issue in most other regions that we're talking about right now. So having said that, yes, I think the very first innovative systems will emerge there. At the moment, they invest a lot in bus rapid transit systems. They're more or less like a subway, but with buses on selected lanes. Maybe if you've been in Bogota or Mexico City, you've seen these bus rapid transit systems. But they only supply like the high demand access that there are in the city. There's so much commute and so much public transport around these, heavy access, and for that, they're looking for on-demand responsive solutions, I think. For here, for our regions, I had this actually in my slide, but I skipped it. I think we will encounter new ways of ride sharing in our cities. So ride sharing, not in the way how we know it today. So we go from here to Munich, I tell you, hey, you want to join my car? Yes, no. This won't work in a city context. Yeah? I don't have the time to let you know, hey, I'm going to Alexanderplatz. You want to join me? This won't happen. What we will see, I think, emerging are new ride-sharing concepts that are much more a kind of matchmaking. Yeah, that know where you're going, that know in advance where you probably will go, and check that with you and try to find riders that will join with you. So we will see, I think, in our regions here, innovative car-sharing, ride-sharing approaches that will go far beyond what we have at the moment.
Talking about those different approaches, different type of data, Jens, there are voices. At least I hear those I hear voices,
voices.
who sometimes even warn that all this data discussion with respect to real business modeling is a kind of a hype. So it's overrated. So I actually have discussions with people who say, I'm not so sure if the value will be as high as it's discussed at the moment. So for autonomous driving, for example, right? I mean, we don't want to discuss the HERE background at the moment with respect to the latest sale, but autonomous driving data or that 3D data could be also collected to a vast fleet, etc. So what is your take on that? Do we just have another overrated buzz topic, or is there really the value in the data?
Not at all. I think at HERE we share the view that the data and getting access to new sources of data and tremendous amounts of data, that is what will be driving the whole industry. This is a real game changer. Given the opportunity to collect the data and to process the data in these quantities is now no longer a vision, but it's already there and it's already happening, and it's happening here right now, and we see this as the next big thing. So this is not another buzzword which we will have forgotten next year and discuss something else. This is a real game changer from our perspective.
So what concrete consumer model, business model you could consider that is really only possible with that type of data that turns directly into revenue?
Well, I think if you want to come up with any service that is data-based, you end up with a situation where you either need personalized data so that you can create something of value, and if personalized data is not available for all kinds of good reasons, then you need to deploy statistics. And if it comes to statistics, you need huge quantities of data. So it's all about being able to run statistics, and that is why we need as much data as is available. And by combining those, you can synthetically generate or deduce the context information, and that is what makes the real difference between data, which is more or less of no value, and information which has a high value because it helps you to solve a problem.
So now we're talking extensively about data, right? But we are in at least the continent, but pretty much in the country of data protection and privacy, etc. Germany so much depending on the automotive industry and innovation on that for the past 100 years. I personally see a big threat that we're falling behind in terms of innovation as a country, but also as an economy if it comes to mobility, data-driven mobility innovation, right? How do you see that? Is this something where you see in your US investments or activities easier approaches, startups moving faster, more attractive investment cases?
Definitely. It's pretty hard here in Germany. Our laws are very restrictive, and there has always been a large gap between what technology is enabled to do and what the law allows us to do. I mean, there's all been tough sayings like, if you can make it in Germany, you can make it everywhere, because if you, fit to the laws here, you're fine.
Yeah, or other way around, like a entrepreneur friend of mine once said, if I'm coming to Germany and someone is telling me, oh, but there's a law against, I know I'm at a big case.
No, but like at the end, it's like we have to to be a bit more open and see what we can really do with the data. Data protection is important. We have to work together with the legacy to really make something possible. But it is a big hurdle. It is not easy to be innovative in such a context.
What do you think has to happen to change this attitude, the public? Because first of all, it's a public attitude, and then lawmakers, etc., have to loosen it. But what has to change in society?
I believe first education, really knowing what happens, what you can do with the data, and transparency. I mean, as long as the consumer is aware of what's happening with his data, that is really what you need. You always fear things that you don't know. We all know it from different contexts, and I think this is what has to happen. And we have to see true benefit. If data will help us in future to really change the way we move around in city, to manage the traffic issues that we have nowadays, then we can all benefit from data. I think this has to change.
So it's about the positive experience, and
Yes.
I like that approach very much. So, Maxim, you have a very successful consumer app with Ali, thousands of people using this every day. Potentially thousands of people also feel affected with their personal data because you're tracking where they are, you're using that data in parts to increase your database, etc. How are you handling this? Is it something where you faced already a blocker where you said, oh, if we only could break this point, then we could grow 200% faster?
Well, first of all, it's interesting to see how many people activate geolocation in Germany in contrast to other regions. And in Germany, only 50% of our users allow us to use their geolocation. And to get the benefit of the app, you must do that. Yeah, otherwise, the app is only 50% of the benefit to you. In Latin America and Africa, and basically all other regions, almost no one deactivates geolocation for us to use it. At the moment, the data, and I think that will remain for a pretty long time, the data is anonymous. So our current users, they don't worry. Yeah? And even the ones that use our app, I think are of a generation, below 40, that do not care so much about the privacy and data protection as maybe some other generations do that were raised in the past century. So at the moment, we don't feel that as a blocker, but you see, why we went with the crowdsourcing approach towards emerging markets was actually driven by the limitations that we have in Germany. And actually, that was pretty beneficial to us eventually, because if we might have done more stuff on data here in Germany, we wouldn't have found that path. So basically that data protection issue of Germany made us pivot into crowdsourcing in emerging markets. So actually I'm quite happy about the situation, about the regulation, because it brought us where we are today. But of course, macroeconomically, it's a disaster.
So meaning that you personally also would consider that data protection issue midterm, long-term a risk to the pace of innovation in Germany?
Yes, exactly.
Well, to add to this, we don't think that data protection is something which is inherently wrong or false. It is exactly the opposite. But what is needed is that customers get a better, or users get a better understanding of how they actually want to make use of their personal data. That is what is crucial. Yes, we're having very strict data protection legislative in place here in Germany, but this does not mean that the typical consumer really thinks about his data and what he can do with it. He's just worried, and this is not to be mixed up with he's concerned or he's thinking about it. He's just worried because he heard something which is not that nice, and so he thinks, well, maybe something evil is going on here. I think what needs to be done from a society perspective is that we change our attitude towards our personal data. We need to develop and come up with ideas to make good use of our own personal data. Actually, it's an asset that everybody is owning, and we should find ways to make something valuable out of it. If I could benefit, if I understand that my personal data has a value, then probably people start using this asset more actively, and that's, I think, what needs to be developed, and that is, of course, within our responsibility as an industry.
But I mean, then, according to what Maxim just said, right, that there's also a positive aspect, would you then, by what you just elaborated on, see a commercial advantage in a sense that this could be a differentiator for the automotive industry against, let's say, bigger other consumer internet companies who are rushing into that industry and who are knowing for collecting a lot of data, to bring them ahead here and say, your data is safe with us and we take it serious?
I think we need to make sure that people understand that we are not stealing their data and doing something which is good for us and which is bad for the consumer. There needs to be a different level of understanding that consumers own something valuable for the industry, and of course the industry is aiming to do something valuable for the customer, because otherwise we won't get any money, and that is what we are all aiming to achieve. So we are not doing this because we are nice people. At the end of the day, we are all aiming to have a proper business up and running, but we need to understand that we need to develop new attitude towards handling personal data.
Holger, may I refer to that? So, I strongly believe that automotive industry, the German automotive industry, has fundamentally not understood the impact of internet to its car. Yeah, and I think up until to Dieselgate, that was a pretty strong and valid thing to say. And after Dieselgate, I think we will see now things changing. If you look at Tesla, and I don't want to talk about the electric engine, all that sort of stuff, I want to talk about that the software is constantly updated online in that car. And the concept of online updates is around for 20 years, since Windows 98. So the cars in Volkswagen we're talking about are not old Golf 1, they're like a few years old. Yet, they don't have the ability to update their software online, and this costs now the company a lot of billions of dollars. So I think a key driver in understanding internet and having a different approach from the industry towards data will be, sad as it is, driven by money. By not losing so much money. What can we do to prevent losing money? I think, you know, the software updates will come now in German cars in the next generation, based on that.
No, and I think a lot of people here in the room and a lot of people here in the room are from the industry would agree with you very much, right? Maybe not in every detail, but coming a little bit back to that data aspect and what you just said, but also what you elaborated on. If this is what we just recently discussed, one of the key issues, right? It's about data protection and safety. Is then cybersecurity the actual key for a successful data-driven mobility? Is it something where we say, okay, first we have to get this in control, or we have to invest into that, right? And there are a lot of cybersecurity companies at the moment coming all over the scene. So to speak, first we have to build the shovels to do the gold rush? Sohaila?
I wouldn't say that, honestly, because I'm more sort of on your pace. I don't think cybersecurity is going to fix everything. There are fears, human fears. It's more about educating the people. And if you create true value, then the people will really adapt to this technology. I think this is the key. I don't think that cybersecurity is going to fix this.
Okay, good. Would you agree with that?
Excuse me, I was what?
Sorry. No.
He was dreaming.
That was the test.
Holger knows me
0
pretty well.
points.
Okay.
0 points for the Tesla fan.
Cut. We do it again. So, would you agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Good. So, excellent. I think we are almost at the end. I don't see any clock here, but no red flag. But maybe we stop at that point of time. Yeah, I'm good in time. We have room for 2-3 questions left. 1, 2? 1, 2? Okay. So, any questions here from the audience about data, cybersecurity, public transport? Also related to Maxim's presentation, maybe earlier, on-demand public transport.
But no questions regarding Maxim's butt plug, please?
No, exactly. We don't want to talk about his personal health.
It's medication, it's not physical.
Okay. Oh, there is one, right at the end.
Oh.
Hi, my name is Sylvan from ParkTag. So I want to bring up net neutrality. So yesterday I was actually listening to Mr. Oettinger. He was at a different conference, and he wasn't quite clear how they think about getting the US corporates to pay for actually using the net. So how is net neutrality going to change mobility? Because of that, I mean, it's very easy to imagine that the toll for the data is also going to change who can actually process data fast.
First of all, this whole discussion about net neutrality is really an important issue, and I fear that with the decisions made recently by the Commission, we are heading towards the wrong direction, because I think the situation we currently have, where there's one internet for everybody, and is what needs to be maintained. That said, we will enter into a situation where, with all the connected vehicles that we see being on our roads within short, we will run into bandwidth restrictions. And I'm afraid to say that I think that we will end up with a separated system where there's a priority lane for those who pay for that. And the reason for that being is that there's limited resource and a high demand, and that always leads to that type of situations, unfortunately. And hopefully we find ways to prevent the development in that direction, but I'm not sure about it.
Good. So there's one more question, but we have to keep it short, otherwise I'm in trouble. And you don't want to have that.
Hi. Companies like Apple and Google are threatening or announcing to go into the car-producing business. As they're obviously quite experienced in big data and in software distribution, do you see a big threat for OEMs from these type of companies?
Yeah, sure. Of course, it's a real threat of disrupting our industry. Of course, we are aware of this, and of course, we do have to adapt our concepts and really get more internet into the car. All of those things. This is what's happening in our industry, and we all know that the big game changer is going to be autonomous driving, and we would be stupid and blind to ignore that. So, of course, that's driving us. It's a good motivation.
Competition drives innovation.
Yes.
I like that. Good. Thank you very much. Thank you to all. Thank you, Sohaila. Thank you, Jens. Maxime, thank you very much. Have a good day.